Hello, I'm Nick.
And I'm Allie.
And this is the But Have You Tried Bookshelf.
Yay!
Happy Thanksgiving, Allie.
Happy Thanksgiving.
I hope you had a lovely time. Do you have any Thanksgiving traditions that you absolutely must do?
I don't know if I really do. I'd say the main thing is my mom usually makes this like homemade cranberry relish, but
Okay.
it's not like the cooked jello-y kind. It's more
Gotcha.
of like a chopped, very finely fruit salad situation.
Yeah, okay.
So I feel like that's the main kind of like iconic Thanksgiving thing
Yeah.
that I think of.
Listen, I've never met a cranberry that I didn't like, so
I mean, that's
any
fair.
variety, send it my way.
Okay, but have you ever tried, like if you're making something with
That's
cranberries?
what the whole
I know.
podcast
I
is
know.
about.
Have you ever tried, if you're making something with cranberries, just like popping them, just like raw into your
actually,
mouth?
no, I don't think I have.
Okay, you won't like it, but
Yeah.
you should try it.
We have some in our fridge.
It is
left over, so-
an interesting experience. You
Huh.
will be forever changed.
Are they just tart? Just too tart?
Yeah, they're
or-
just really tart. The texture of them is kind of interesting too.
Okay. I'm always fascinated by like cranberry bogs, where you just have like cranberries floating
I
out
know.
of a lake. It's like,
That's crazy.
How
It
is
doesn't
that?
seem like that should be how
Okay.
that works. I mean, I love
Okay.
it. The energy is fantastic, but
yeah. I'm all about Thanksgiving morning. That's my,
like
I'm,
before
you know,
before the meal.
Yeah, I could take or leave like the big giant table and the cacophony. I don't need that in my life. But Thanksgiving morning, we always do like a big fancy breakfast. We did these. Have you ever had? It's called a Dutch baby. Have you ever had?
I don't think so.
Okay, it's like a pancake, but not really. It's like a pastry. And you do it in kind of like a deep pan, and so there's like a pastry base, and it kind of comes up the side,
Okay.
right? And it's kind of a sweet, and then you put lemon curd on and sprinkle it with blueberries, and then just like maple syrup.
Okay.
And it's So that was our breakfast this year, and that was grade A.
That sounds pretty good.
But got to do some fancy breakfast. Got to have some eggnog and sit there and watch the parade, and that's what I think of as my Thanksgiving, and then whatever comes after is,
If it happens, it happens.
yeah,
I kind of wish, honestly, that I had more like distinct Thanksgiving traditions
Yeah.
that weren't about the food, because as much as I love food,
yeah,
I feel like Thanksgiving is a little bit stressful in that it so easily becomes like so much
Yeah.
about all of the food, and
Yeah.
there's just too much. And it's really overwhelming, particularly for a person such as myself with like a tiny little peewee sized stomach. That just becomes stressful,
Yeah, I get
and
it.
or I make myself feel
Yeah,
uncomfortable
you
and
se-
sick.
You seem like you'd be into the parade. You're not into the parade?
I've never really watched it that much.
Okay, it's a good time.
Okay.
There's Broadway
maybe
things.
Maybe I'll try and
there's faded celebrities.
I'll try.
There's
I'll
performances.
try and make it a new tradition.
I think you should. Yeah, next year. Okay, well, I hope you had a lovely Thanksgiving. But we got to talk about what we've been reading and watching and all of those things that we're doing while we prepare for our painting episode.
Yes.
So I did not paint the picture that we're going to paint, but it's been a while since I'd done something. So I did like a nice fall scene with a train that I initially was like, oh, this is terrible. And then when it dried and I looked at it the next day, I was like, okay.
Sometimes that's how that
I
works.
see some things that I like in it. I still, I'm not 100%, but it was fun to kind of get back into it in preparation for our painting
Yeah,
episode.
that does
so,
seem like a good little
Yeah.
get yourself in that
Yeah.
headspace.
What was your last painting project?
Boy, it's been a while.
Yeah.
I was working on this painting. It's like a still life of my favorite kind of tea with some like bread and jam and
Okay.
oranges in the background. Okay. I know this is a very nerdy
All right.
concept. And that is pretty much done. But then the issue I had was I accidentally put too much shading under the mug.
Oh.
And I needed to get additional paints for the like color of the
Yeah.
table to kind of take back some of the shaded area.
Yeah.
But most of the paints I have are like old and weird and dried out because of
Yeah.
how I am as
Sure.
a person.
Sure. I've seen your office. I
yeah.
get it, I get it.
So I think I got the paints I need to fix the table, but
Okay.
then by the time I'd done that, I kind of was out of the flow. So
Okay.
I still need to go back and fix the table.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll do that as a warm up.
Oh, that'd be a good idea. So the train that I painted, the light, I didn't like the way the light was looking, like the headlight thing. And so that's what I like about acrylics is I kind of went over the things that the light was touching again and just start it over. So I feel like it's very forgiving in that way.
Yeah, I
She
do
could be
appreciate
like, this
that.
sucks. You just blow
just
on
paint
it.
over
just
it.
blow on it and then do it again.
The issue
So
I
that's what I
sometimes have with that, though, is I'm not always patient enough to
I'm
fully let
definitely
it
not
dry
patient
before I
No.
go over it.
This painting would be a lot better if I let things dry better before
Yeah.
I moved on to the
You
next
just have
step.
to like plan to get a lot of snacks in the middle.
Yeah.
Just like get up, get
Yeah.
a snack, come back. Maybe
I mean, I
it's
guess
dry.
I should commit to having like a hairdryer or something right there with me so I could just like speed up the process. Because, your boy's got no patience. But anyway, I know this is a big writing time for you. So you've already prepared me
Yes.
with you
That my
haven't
offerings
been
are
the
a
most,
little,
engaged
scant.
in the world of pop culture, but that's all right. Well, I'll make it easy for you, and I will begin by telling you the movies that I watched.
Okay, I'm ready.
As you recall, I went to Canada for my anniversary. This is a weird story, so I'm gonna have to get into it for you.
Okay.
Okay. So my wife hosts previously on X-Men, the podcast
Right,
that you
right.
and I have done occasionally. And in that, she was doing a Spider-Man Venom X-Men crossover, which we actually have in the collection here.
Okay.
It's called Dark Web. It's very good. In that, Venom is in the middle of some crazy stuff happening. Okay. Like the Venom story is insane. And so we finished the episode, and I was the guest on that. When we finished the episode, and Hillary's like, I just have to know what's going on with Venom. She's never expressed interest in Venom.
Okay.
Has actually like been anti-Venom.
Oh,
a
this
long
is really
time.
a turning moment.
But she was like, I just have to know what that was all about. And so I'm like, okay, well, we found a good starting place. And she just, like over the course of, 6 months, just read all of Venom.
Oh my gosh.
So Hillary went from
That's a
like,
whole journey.
It is. She went from being like, I don't know Venom, for me, please, to being like, thank you more, Venom. And so when we were on our anniversary, we were like, oh, we should go see a movie. And the third Venom movie, Venom: The Last Dance, was out. And so, we were in a big city. We were right outside of Toronto. And so they had an IMAX 3D.
Oh, man.
And we were like, let's go all in.
Oh, man.
And we get there, and watching this movie with her, like we've watched the other ones together, but that was when she was in her I don't really care about
Right,
Venom.
right.
Though she has liked these movies and Tom Hardy, particularly his Eddie Brock and Venom voice. And so, she was kind of whatever about those movies. And then we watched this one, and this is the first time that I've watched a Venom movie with her being a bona fide fan.
Okay.
So things would happen, and there's all these like bros and teenagers and whatever. And Hillary was definitely the foremost Venom expert in the whole theater. So something would happen, and she'd be like, "Oh my gosh, they're bringing in Null," and I was like, "What are you talking about? How do you know what that is? You didn't even see anything." It was just like so. It was a weird experience.
Oh my gosh.
Watching Venom: The Last Dance in IMAX 3D with the foremost Venom expert in all of Canada at that time.
That's really funny.
My wife Hillary of previously on X-Men fame. So did watch Venom. It was fun. Tom Hardy never disappoints. You've never seen these,
Nope.
right? I feel like there's a world in which you could they're so weird. Like Tom Hardy as an actor always makes interesting choices. But Tom Hardy in Venom, it's like they just released him into the wild and we're just like, hey man, do whatever you want. And he took him up on the offer.
Okay.
So I think you could get on board. So I watched Venom: The Last Dance, and it was good. I went into it thinking it was the end, but they're definitely setting up storylines. So I don't know.
Who knows what will happen?
Yeah. I mean, in the original comics lore, it's like the black suit Spider-Man gets during Secret Wars, and then he comes back, and eventually Eddie Brock gets the suit, and it kind of takes him over, and then he and Venom kind of form a symbiosis. But the Venom symbiote moves to other characters as well. So maybe that's what they're doing. I don't know. I would like to apologize to our listeners for talking about Venom this much, but I did.
You
I
should
did watch
never
this movie.
apologize
Thank
for
you.
things to make you happy.
And we do have the first two movies in the collection and lots of Venom graphic novels, including Dark Web, which is what started Hillary on this weird path to begin with. So check it out. Did you watch any movies?
I did rewatch
Okay.
the Princess Diaries franchise.
Like Anne Hathaway, Princess Diaries, Julie Andrews. Okay.
Yep. Which I remember enjoying as a kid / teenager, but I definitely haven't seen for like 10 or more years. And for some reason, something made me think of that like makeover scene where they like are trying to brush her hair and break the brush and all the curls and everything. And I just felt inclined to watch them. And so I did.
Okay.
And I like knitted. It was very satisfying.
Okay. I know that I've saw and enjoyed the first one. There's 3 though, right?
There is a third one in theory coming out
Oh,
at
there's
some
only 2?
point, but we don't know anything about it yet.
So there's only
Other
2
than
in
it
existence
exists.
at the
Yes.
moment. Okay, cool. All right. I don't know that I ever saw that one because I think Chris Pine is in that one. I haven't seen it.
I feel like that one is maybe better. It's hard to say,
Okay.
but I
Have
feel
you
like
the Meg Cabot book series? Like, have you read
I haven't.
it? Oh, really?
I
Okay.
am kind of curious about it, but I'm a little bit like, there's a chance that if I read it, I'll like hate it because it's not the movies, you know, and that's what I experienced first.
True.
Or there's a chance that I'll realize how much the movies have been like skimping on stuff from the book, and then I'll just be really disappointed.
Yeah.
And so I feel like there's multiple roads that could lead to like me being annoyed and or disappointed.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is it worth the possibility that this will just go swimmingly and I'll be delighted?
Yeah.
I'm unsure.
Okay. Well,
Maybe I need to read
seems
Goodreads
like
reviews
you would
of the
enjoy
books
them. I don't
and
know.
then see
I don't.
yeah.
I feel like Meg Cabot has certainly remained, relevant in the
That's
book
true.
world and everything.
Which feels like
so,
a promising sign.
Yeah, I mean, she's got staying power, so that to me implies that there's something there.
I know. I'll have to do a little digging.
Speaking of page-to-screen adaptations, I watched The Goldfinch. Are you
Oh.
familiar with this at all?
I know what it is.
Okay. The book by Donna Tartt was one of my favorite books of the decade. I mean, I loved that book. It's huge, it's a tome, and it's really, it's sprawling in its scope, and I was surprised they were making a movie out of it because it's not particularly cinematic, it's kind of like reminds me of David Copperfield, not the 90s magician, but the Charles Dickens book, where it's kind of like this situation and this situation and this situation, and none of these situations are great. And you're kind of following this protagonist throughout them. The movie, I think, it was a bomb and not critically well received, but I watched it with my wife who hadn't read the book, didn't know the story at all, and we both enjoyed it pretty much equally. So it was one of those things where I was like, oh, you're missing a lot of the connective tissue here. Like,
right.
I don't know that the character by the end is really a fleshed out enough character because you don't have 1,000 pages of a book to do that, and it's a little. But they managed to kind of, because there's two. You see him when he's like 13 and then probably when he's like 25, and it kind of is jumping back and forth between those two perspectives in a way that I thought was really effective and kind of conveyed like, look at all the crap this kid's gone through. So I think it was good. I don't think you have to have read the book to enjoy it, but I do think the book is better, and I think you should read The Goldfinch.
Okay.
All right.
Well, that's a solid endorsement of The Goldfinch.
Yeah. Donna Tartt didn't like it so much.
The movie?
Well, she was, paid for the adaptation, but she wanted to write the screenplay and wanted to like work on the movie, and it was like, no thanks. So she was not a fan about that. So
that's fair.
I need to go. She's only written 3 novels, and it's like she's written one every 10 years. So I think we're about due, maybe. When was The Goldfinch?
I don't know.
I
feel like it's been out for a while.
I got to go back and read the others. But the last thing I watched was Memento. Christopher Nolan's Memento. Do you know this?
I don't think so.
Okay, it's a mystery story. It's it plays with noir themes. It's a non-linear narrative. It was the only Christopher Nolan movie that I hadn't seen, and so I checked it out from the library, and I was like, we got to do this so I can check it off the list. But I enjoyed it.
Well, that's
I've
great.
liked all of his films except for Tenet. Have you seen any? Have you seen Dunkirk or Inception?
I don't think so.
Batman Begins. Do you want me to just keep listing all of them?
There's a chance that sooner or later we can find what I've seen.
Well, I like them for the most part. And yeah, Memento was really good, and I'm glad to have finally watched it. What about TV? What are you watching on the old television?
Well, we finished rewatching the second season of Stranger Things with my family.
Gotcha.
And
is that the mall season?
No, that's the first Mind Flayer season.
Okay.
With Bob.
That's kind of a weak season, right?
I thought it was good. I think it's one of the better ones.
Oh, okay. Well,
but it really depends what criteria. I feel like that's the thing with Stranger Things.
It, so I don't have any
I feel like it holds up pretty well for a rewatch, having just rewatched it for the first time.
I can't believe that there's another season, but
that's season 5.
It's wild to me. It just seems like, those movies came out when like George W. Bush was president or something. Like they just seem so old to me now.
Yeah, it is very strange. And I feel like it would be less weird if they had like intentionally included more time in between seasons.
Give me a time jump. Yeah.
And like it's like most of them are about a year apart. So like if the kids look older, it's fine. But it feels like maybe here and there they should have made it at least 2 years apart.
Definitely.
But
yeah, they're all like 38. They all have like mortgages and divorces.
It's definitely a weird experience.
Oh
but
gosh.
We were watching the second season, and there's this one scene where Eleven is spoilers, but she's doing things, and it's playing a Bon Jovi song in the background, and I was like, well, she's married to his kid now, so
wow, she made it happen. Look at that.
I know.
Yeah.
So that was a good time.
Okay.
We also have been watching Superman and Lois.
Yeah, me too.
We are not quite caught up. I think we
Yeah.
have one episode left, maybe
Okay.
two.
Yeah, we're coming up this week. I mean, as we record, this is the final episode. So
It's pretty serious.
yeah, I don't. I am enjoying it. It doesn't play like a final season to me. It
Yeah.
doesn't feel. You know, a lot of times in a final season, I kind of want like a greatest hits. Like, look at this cool Superman stuff he's doing,
Mhm.
or look at this, you know, and it just sort of feels like it's just Lex Luthor like staring down the barrel of the camera with a big beard for like 70% of the season.
That's
But
fair.
you know,
And he's so annoying too. I
He
mean,
is
like that's
annoying.
exactly the
He is annoying.
point. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? It's well executed, but
yeah,
he's annoying.
Yeah,
I don't like him.
I agree. I'll be sad to see the show go though.
Yeah. And it's definitely, I don't feel like it's been too bad in terms of the like budget cuts not having all the actors around
Yeah.
as much. But there's definitely some points where you're like, wouldn't it make sense for that character to be in this episode?
Yeah.
Or like comment on this situation
I
in
feel
some
like
way?
there's no good way, because there's a lot of times where I just, you know, it's so corny to be like, oh, Lana was just here and she had to run to the store real quick, you know, like that's corny. But just having major life things happen and
Right?
not even acknowledging that those people,
Would probably
know,
feel invested in this in some way.
like, you know, the where Lana and Sarah were in danger, it's like Sarah's dad is like across the street, you know what I
and
mean?
it
It's
just
like,
never comes.
nobody
The
even
only
talk
thing
about
is
it.
like, oh yeah, good thing my dad makes us sleep with a baseball bat under our
right, yeah,
bed.
yeah. So there's things like that where they're.
But it still feels like he would show up and be like
I
freaking
think
out
so.
about the situation.
I think so.
But
I think I wish that they were taking a little bit more time with the dialogue to flesh that stuff out, because I think I would have been okay with like, well, your dad's going to be here soon, or you know, something like
Yeah.
that, or like he was on a fire, whatever.
right.
But You're right.
Yeah.
It's not as bad as it could be.
No,
for sure.
honestly, I'm impressed by how well they're doing given the limitations that they have.
Although, truthfully, I probably would have given that a time jump too, because then, you know, Sarah's in college. You know what I mean? Like, just whatever. Like, you could do things. But
That's fair.
anyway, this is the CW series Superman and Lois, everyone, which we have the DVDs up here.
I'm still going with my Gilmore Girls rewatch.
Okay.
My progress has slowed, but I'm still making slow progress.
Okay. Let's see. I started watching a new show called Man on the Inside with Ted Danson. Do you know who Ted Danson is?
No.
Okay. He was in the show Cheers. He played Sam Malone famously. He was in The Good Place with Kristen Bell.
Okay.
All right. He plays a widower who his daughter is like, you got to get out there and do something. And he answers an ad that ends up being for a PI firm that needs somebody his age to infiltrate a retirement community to
That
find
sounds
the
fun.
stolen jewel. It is. It's very fun. It's right up your alley. I think that you would enjoy it. So that's brand new. It's on Netflix. I think I've watched maybe the first 4 episodes or something, but I'm having a good time. Another new sitcom I'm liking is called English Teacher, which is on FX, and I don't even know how to describe it. It's just a funny teacher in funny situations. It's sharp. It has a little bit of a throwback. It feels vaguely 80s. It's not set in the 80s, but they're kind of chasing that
Okay. That
aesthetic
80s
a little
feeling.
bit, you know, and it's really fun. That's an FX show. And then finally, I finished Star Trek Prodigy, which is the animated show that started on Nickelodeon, and then Nickelodeon and Paramount were like, we canceled it, and then Netflix picked it up and ran season 2. And it's not definitely the end. They're not like it's never coming back, but they haven't renewed it, and it really functions well as a contained thing. They give you kind of a montage, and you get a real, like, this is the final episode vibe.
Okay.
But then they tie it in with some of the continuity that's happening in Star Trek Picard, because they're about the same time. And so you get these little hints of what's going on, and then the main crew we've been following gets a new assignment that's kind of related to that. So it's like you can either take that as the setup for season 3, which I'm sure they hope it is, and I hope it is, or it's a nice epilogue that's like they
And then they
accomplish
go
their
off
mission
and-
and they continue.
Yeah.
So, but this is very good, and it's I think they're crazy for canceling it, especially if they want this franchise to continue, because it was merched so heavily. I mean, there's like junior novels, there's a video game, there's action figures, there's pajamas. You know, like it's so family friendly. Like my wife and son and I, we all watched it together, and we all kind of liked it equally. It's pretty magical in that way. And it really it gives you enough nostalgia. It brings in characters, but it is like 100% about these new characters that are very fit well in the Trek world, and just it's a good show. We also have this DVD, and maybe I'll have you try it someday because
I
it's
feel
good.
like
It's good
it's
stuff.
my destiny to have you try some
I
of
also-
the new Star Trek
I
shows
also think
at
it's
some point sooner or
I also
later.
think it's your destiny. But you were just watching some crazy kids action show, Slug Terra. Remember, you were just watching Slug Terra. So I mean, if you're rolling with that,
That's true.
You
That's
could
true.
probably-
Slug Terra gets really weird at the end, but it starts out very
you could
fun.
probably get on board with Star Trek Prodigy. So that's my main TV watching. What about books?
Okay.
Tell me about the books you're reading and the book that you're writing simultaneously, if you could.
I am doing this whole like journey into the author Jesse Q. Sutanto, which I don't know if you remember. We probably would have talked about this before on the podcast. Some time ago, like maybe a year or so,
Okay.
I read a book by hers called Dial A for Aunties.
Oh, I do remember that. Yeah.
Yes. And it was hilarious and fantastic. So
Okay.
good. Accidental murder, so much
Yep,
shenanigans, a little bit of like, second chance romance kind of situation going on. And she wrote a sequel to it, which I also read, which is like, oh, they're getting married, but the mafia is sort of trying to screw with them while they're getting married. And I
Stupid
realized,
mafia.
I know, the nerve of them. I realized recently that she also had a couple of like YA romances that I hadn't read.
Okay.
And there's two that kind of go together, like they have overlapping characters. Well, that was unexpected and didn't see that coming. And
Okay.
it's like the main characters are those two are cousins.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I listened to the audiobooks of those and they were fun. They were
Okay.
just a blast,
right.
lighthearted and great. I also realized as I was finishing those that there's a third one in the Dial A for Aunties
Oh.
series. So I'm now listening
Look
to
at
that.
that.
And
The
I'm
good, the bad,
approaching
and the
end.
anties.
I know.
Wow.
I'm amazed that she's been able to like continue this because the first one felt so like one-off, like
yeah.
perfectly complete.
Yeah.
And I think you could maybe say that the sequels aren't quite as good,
Yeah.
but for sequels, I feel like they're
Okay.
pretty good.
Okay.
It makes sense. She keeps finding more crazy
Yeah.
situations to put them in.
That's a fine line, when it's like you kind of want more, but the story doesn't really merit it. Like that
Yeah.
can end disastrously. So I'm glad that she's pulling it off.
Yeah, me too. And they're just hilarious. So
Yeah.
I definitely give them extra grace because of that, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
I'm also reading The Grey Wolf by Louise Penny.
Louise Penny.
Louise Penny.
Are you? Because you've been on this for a while and you haven't attacked it like I thought you would.
Yes.
So
Yeah, I had to finish a book for my book club.
right. Did you
And
do it?
I
Because last
did.
time it was like right down to the wire. but
I
you
know.
finished it in
I
time.
did
Okay.
manage to finish it in time.
Okay.
A Venom Dark and Sweet by Judy Lynn. It was good, but it definitely suffered in my mind because it was competing with The Grey Wolf.
Sure. Yeah.
But I have
you don't
now.
want to. You don't want to pick a fight with Louise Penny.
You just shouldn't. It's
No,
a bad
thank
choice.
you.
I definitely wouldn't recommend that. But I am reading The Grey Wolf now, and I can focus on it, which I did back burner
Yeah.
that Brandon Sanderson book that I was reading.
You're right.
I'll
Yeah.
come back to that.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I have a Herbert Hoover book that I've put
Sometimes
aside.
you just, you're in the middle of working on something else, and
Yep.
you just have to come back to it later.
Sorry, Herb. I got other things to do. The book that I was trying to finish for my book club, ours here, the Books and Brews book club, was 0 Days by Ruth Ware. And I finished it, and I was kind of like, that was kind of bad, but also I liked it. And we went to the book club, and it was like, that was the universal reaction to this book.
That's
It's like
so funny.
all whatever it was, 12 of us, were kind of like, yeah, the more we talked about it, we were like, well, that didn't make sense. And like, that didn't really work. And, but then we all kept coming back to, but somehow it was enjoyable and fun. And it was
Sometimes
such
that's
a
all that
marshmallow
matters.
of a book,
Yeah, that's funny.
It went so cliche in places, and it relied so heavily on stock characters. But there's something about her writing that, like, even in a book like that, it just kind of pulls it through, and you're like, all right, let's do it again.
Sure.
What else you got, Ruthie?
I don't
So-
know if you experience this, but I feel like I'm starting to discover that talking about a book in a book club with my friends does perhaps negatively impact my overall impression of the book.
Yeah.
Because inevitably, if I'm reading a book, particularly a YA book, because I love YA books, but they always put in so much like YA main character energy crap that I
Yeah.
just have to roll my eyes at a little bit. And if I'm reading the book just by myself, I can like just kind of blow
Yeah.
past that and not think about it and forget about it. But as soon as I'm talking about it with my friends, it's so easy for me to be like, yeah, in that moment where the main character did that really weird
Yeah.
thing, can you believe that?
Yeah.
And then I feel like by the end of it, I'm like, whoops, maybe I...
Yeah.
Maybe I went a little too hard on this one.
Yeah, that I think that always happens. It sort of depends on what, like, for the library ones, if I have to lead the discussion, I usually end up liking the book more because I'm desperately clawing at positive things to say.
Mm-hmm.
So that in that way, I sort of like can come around. But yeah, just with friends, usually the parts that stand out to me are the parts that are like didn't quite work so well.
Can you believe
yeah.
this?
Yeah. Too. Well, whilst in Canada, I picked up Mike Myers' Canada, which is a book Mike Myers wrote about Canada, as you might have sussed.
I'm shocked.
And it was really interesting because, you know, I grew up in the United States of America, so I never heard a single word about Canada or what was happening or what Canada was. I just knew it was like Michigan's hat. And so this was like really in a lot of ways, my first introduction to just the concept of Canadian culture and what it was like. It was really focused on like what being Canadian was like for him personally. And I don't know, I enjoyed it. I mean, I like Mike Myers anyway, but I just thought the book was interesting and entertaining. And I actually feel like I learned things about Canada, which, you know, our public school system never taught me. I didn't go to public school, but I don't think it would have taught me that either because my wife did and she didn't learn about Canada.
See,
so.
This is why you should read all the Louise Penny books
gotta learn
because
about Canada.
they do teach you about Canada and Canadian. It's mostly focused on Quebec. So like that's not exactly the same as all of the rest of Canada.
Yeah.
But it's still very interesting. And like for my entire life, so many of my friends have been like, French is the coolest language. We should all learn French because of Paris and romance and drama. And I was like never at all into that. And now that I've been reading all these Louise Penny books and they're using like Quebec French, I'm kind of like, you know what? This kind of does inspire me. I do sort of want to learn French because of this specifically. Yeah.
Well, here's a little tease. We're going to be getting a new service here at the library called Mango Languages, which you can access with your library card. And it's a cool. It's not as oppressive as Duolingo. You know what I mean? You don't have like an owl knocking at your door
being like,
at
how
11:50.
dare you?
Yeah. This is all over if you don't pick up your phone right now. So yeah, you can learn Quebec French from Mango Languages.
That sounds fun. Maybe I'll do that. I'd like to learn Quebec
I
French.
read that Mike Myers book, and then I picked up 2 books. My audiobook right now is Entrances and Exits by Michael Richards, who played Kramer in the series Seinfeld.
Okay.
Have you heard of the Seinfeld
I have heard
program?
of it.
Okay. So I'm listening to that, and that's good. And then going back to what I said about Ruth Ware and picking up things that are like, that's not great, but it is fun. I picked up a James Patterson, Mike Lupica book called 12 Months to Live about a prosecutor who is trying a case while getting pulled into like a shady second case and also has a medical condition where she thinks she's going to die.
Oh.
So a lot of things going on. And it's like an old school page turner. And I'm enjoying that quite a bit. Yeah. Comics, webtoons, anything?
As usual. I need to like pick up another webtoon. So I guess listeners, if you have a webtoon recommendation for me, you know,
send them in.
Send them in.
Send them in.
I
Send the
have
self-addressed
like
stamped envelope too.
2 or 3 now that I'm reading, and 2 of them come out on the same day. So I just like read them back to back. So I only have 2 days of like webtoon happiness
That's not enough.
in my life. It's not quite enough.
No.
And definitely there have been times in my life where I've had too many webtoons and it's like you're slogging to keep up with them, you know?
Yeah.
So that's not good. But I feel like 1 to 2 more days of like a webtoon update per week would be ideal.
Okay.
But
yeah, dive in. What are you looking for in a webtoon? You looking for a story? You looking for adventure? You looking for romance, comedy? What are we doing?
Comedy is good.
Okay.
Story is good. I feel like fun character dynamics that are really like hooking is good. Sometimes some of the actiony ones I try to read and I feel like they just aren't giving me enough of like the character stuff that I want.
All right.
But maybe that's a me problem.
So my friend Eric, who used to work here, as you might remember Eric, he has wanted me to read this comic book called Superman's Secret Identity since I've known him, decades at this point. And it is about it's about a world, just a normal world, and a kid is named Clark Kent, and he's always teased like, oh, hey, Superman, and he gets like Superman gifts and stuff. And then when he's a teenager, he develops Superman-esque powers and kind of begins to live out that situation. So it's never like, you know, this is a DC Comics Superman. That's in this series, like the comic books are just comic books, you know. And it's him kind of coming to terms with his powers, and you see him from like his teenage years through like, you know, late in life, like post-retirement kind of years. And I have never wanted to read this because it just doesn't sound interesting to me.
But it does sound like something that you, with your love of Superman, should
Well, that's
read.
what he said. That's what he said.
I'm
but
with
I
Eric
just
on this
never.
one.
Okay, all right. I just never wanted to do it, right? So I love the Robert Kirkman series Invincible, and there's a one-off spin-off of that called Science Dog, which seems like it would be stupid, but is actually like this really tight, dark time travel adventure.
Okay.
And I was like, Eric, you have to read Science Dog. And he was like, no. And so we've been at this stalemate for probably 15 years. And then I saw on Goodreads that he read and loved Science Dog. And I was like, I wasn't even badgering you about this, but he read it. And so I was like, well, I guess now it's my duty to read Superman's Secret Identity.
Yeah, you are obligated. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know why, like, neither of us would trust the other, that we would have, that we would like this. You know what I mean? Because we both, like, 5-starred these things. So, you know, we wasted so many years not reading Science Dog and Superman's Secret Identity, which both are good, and I recommend both of them. So that was my big graphic novel. What about just anything else in your life? What are you doing? You're writing.
I am writing.
You're writing. Okay.
I'm working
How's it
on
going?
It's going pretty good. I just broke into chapter 3.
Okay.
And I'm writing a story about airship pirates.
Yeah.
And this girl who works at her grandfather's tavern, and he tinkers, and he made the airship that the pirates use, but she doesn't know that. And he gets captured by people who live kind of inland because they want his, like, technological knowledge, basically.
Yeah.
And in the process of that, the captain of this airship pirate is, like, very, like, grievously injured. Like, she's probably going to die.
Okay.
And she seems to recognize the main character, and she basically says, hey, I'm dying, and someone on my crew, like, betrayed us, and that's why your grandfather's captured.
Okay.
So you need to, like, disguise yourself as me and pretend to be me and root out this person.
Yeah.
And so the whole scene where the captain is, like, trying to convince her to do this is what I'm working on right now.
Yeah.
It's very involved. It's a long sequence.
Yeah.
But I'm having a good time.
I respect this swing you're taking, because your previous two, at least the two that I'm aware of, are more like college-y and real world kind of set.
Yeah,
So
this is the
like a
first
big-
fantasy thing that
yeah.
I've written since, like,
That's
being
exciting.
a child anyway.
Yeah.
So
You said grandpa, and I was like, uh-oh. Grandpa's
Yeah,
in danger.
that's a
Grandpa's
fair-
in danger.
that's a fair
And then you
concern.
said captured, so, you know.
there's a chance that he could be fine.
Maybe he's fine.
Yeah.
Maybe he's
We'll
fine.
find out.
Yeah.
That's what the main character is
Okay.
wondering for
All
sure.
right. All right. Well, that's cool. And you said usually you're kind of like a year on these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this time next year, you're thinking
It'll probably be done.
it'll
I hope.
probably be done.
We'll see.
And we'll see if Grandpa's all right.
Yeah, we'll find out.
All right.
It'll be exciting to
That's
know.
exciting. Here's something that's not exciting, but I got a tetanus shot last week,
Oh,
and my
man.
arm still
Oh,
hurts.
no.
It's still, there's a little bump there. It's unpleasant.
Oh, that's horrible. But you don't have to worry about tetanus. You can step on all the nails you want.
Well, that's true. And I had actually, my tetanus had kind of lagged in between, like, you know, when it was still good and my, like, annual physical. And so I was kind of, like, so afraid of, like, hitting a nail, because tetanus is serious.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Scary stuff.
It's like, if you're not up on your tetanus and you get scratched and you get tetanus, it's like, you might as
I
well
know.
just, like, walk to a funeral home, because
Yeah,
you're
it's
done.
terrifying.
So yeah, it was a little creepy.
One of the things I love, though, because most of the time I'm like, how long has it been since I had a tetanus shot? I'm not sure, because, like, remembering that stuff and having a concept of how much time has passed, impossible. But sometimes it's like, oh yeah, I know for a fact that within the last 3 months I had a tetanus shot, and so I'm not worried about this weird staple that was on the ground or whatever. And that's such a good feeling.
It is a good feeling. I know. The only reason why I knew is because we got him when my son was born and we were in the hospital. We all got tetanus shots, and I don't know why, but we did.
As a
And
family,
So,
you all
yeah,
got
pretty
them
much.
together.
Yeah,
That's
it was
kinda
our
fun.
first bonding experience. I don't know if he did, but Hillary and I definitely did. So, but I'm all set.
You're all safe.
So if you need me to dig through things with jagged metal, I can do it. I don't want to, but
But you
know,
can.
I can.
You're
I
prepared.
can. I've already told you a couple of long-winded stories about things that you don't particularly care about, and I've got one more.
Okay.
If you'll indulge
I'm
me.
ready.
Are you ready? Okay. You know how I like the Beatles.
Uh-huh.
You know, and I think we've talked about the album Yesterday and Today before in one of our, like, music things.
I feel like we have.
There's the British albums, which are just like the regular albums, and then the songs kind of made their way over to America, and Capitol Records was just like, we're going to assemble them in this ways to make them sound more like, you know, American, like, pop rock. And so
That's such a weird strategy.
it is, but I mean, this is a minority opinion, but I think it's smart, because I think that the sound and everything feels much more like contemporary, like 60s music than I think it doesn't matter. But my point is,
Okay.
Yesterday and Today is a compilation of songs from a couple different places, but I really like the sequencing of that album. So even though it's kind of like looked on as a lesser album, it's one of my favorites. The history of Yesterday and Today is that the Beatles were in this, they were doing a bunch of different photo shoots, just doing weird stuff, just whatever. And one of them was they all put on butcher coats and took pictures like they're just working at a butcher shop with, like, cuts of meat and stuff,
Okay.
like actual cuts of meat around them. But the like sort of macabre thing they did was add like parts of dolls.
Okay.
And so it's a gross cover. Like
For
it is
sure.
a gross cover. So they put it out there, and the world was unilaterally like, no,
We don't like this.
We don't like this at all. And so the Butcher cover is sort of an iconic thing in Beatles lore.
Okay.
So Capitol recalled everything, and then the few Butcher covers that made it out there into the world now are like hugely valuable and
Of
very
course.
sought after. But the initial printings, they got them back from stores, and they just printed a big sticker and just pasted it over the Butcher cover, and that's the cover that is used today with the Beatles sitting in a big trunk.
Huh.
So there's certain hallmarks of an original Butcher cover that has the trunk cover pasted over it. And I know these things because it's the weird things that I'm into.
Sure.
And I was at a secondhand place, and I saw yesterday and today, and I was like, that looks wrong to me. And I picked it up, and I'm like, I think I can faintly see Ringo
The Butcher cover.
underneath. And I look along the top. The catalog numbers for the record are half covered by like a sticker. And I'm like, this is a Butcher cover. This is a Butcher cover with a paste over on it. And so I bought it, and I got it home and like really like poured over it. And 100% yes, it's a Butcher cover.
Huh.
So I'm very excited about it. I know it's
That's
not
so
really,
cool.
it's not particularly valuable because probably thousands of these are out there in the world, but like, it's just one of those things, you know, it just feels a little bit like a holy grail. And so I'm excited about it.
Are you just enjoying it as is, or are you going to try and do like a careful operation to remove the sticker?
You know, there are things that take you through how to do that, but I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's been on there for 50 years,
Right.
60 years, you know, whatever.
It's probably stuck on there pretty good.
It probably is. I don't know that you could really dissolve it. The corners have a bit of a bump, you know, like it kind of hit the edge of a table or something, and the sticker's peeled back a little bit, and you can see the gray Butcher cover underneath.
That's kinda cool.
So, yeah, I kind of just gently tugged on that a little bit to see, you know, if it would just, and it didn't really, but I was pretty excited about it. So
That
it's a
is
great
cool.
album, but also, like, I got this weird Butcher cover, so I'm excited about that.
Well, I'm happy for you.
Yeah.
That does sound cool.
Yeah. And what about you? What are you listening to?
Well, I'm always listening to jazz, and I've been really into the Nat King Cole kick
yeah.
lately.
Yeah.
And people keep coming up to me while I'm listening to Nat King Cole, particularly like at the kids' desk, and asking
Yeah.
me if I'm listening to Christmas music. And it
Huh.
makes me a little upset,
Yeah.
like unreasonably, perhaps.
I
'cause
guess his cover of the Christmas song, Chestnuts.
it's so iconic. I
Yeah.
feel like that's almost like the version
Yeah.
of the Christmas song. So like I kind of understand, but at the same time I'm like, there's so many good Nat King
Yeah.
Cole songs that aren't Christmas. Please go
What-
home and listen to them.
What do you think of when in, like Nat King Cole? What's the song that pops into your head?
Probably like the LOVE
Oh,
song.
sure, yeah.
I feel like that's
Okay,
There's so many others that I really like, but I feel like that's kind of like the iconic one
Okay.
that I think of.
that's true. Mona Lisa is the one that I think.
That's
of.
also a really
So,
good one.
Yeah, I have a lot of Nat King Cole records. I love Nat King Cole. That's good
Yeah.
times. All right.
He's a good time.
Maybe I'll dust him out. I mean, he does do good Christmas stuff too. And
That's
it's,
true.
you know,
I mean,
'tis the
I
season.
love his Christmas
At this
stuff.
point, you know,
At this point, I'm
the
all ready to
season
go Nat King Cole Christmas.
tis.
But
So, yeah. Okay.
let it be known there are other Nat King Cole
Well,
songs
while
too.
you're beginning to get into Christmas things, this should put you in the right mood to paint our picture.
Yes.
So we have settled on a design that we're going to do. It's a nice barn scene, a nice wintry barn scene that we're going to do. There is a tutorial that I'm going to watch, and you can decide if you're going to do this. Are you going to do the tutorial?
I'm going to at least try to do the tutorial.
Okay.
We'll
All
find out if I like rebel
If you
partway
can-
through.
Yeah, well,
But
I think you're well within your rights to rebel.
we'll
But
see what
if we-
happens.
If we use maybe at least that image as a starting point.
I'm
we can
excited
kind
to
of
try
see
the
where it goes.
tutorial. I cannot promise that I will follow it exactly,
You
but
don't
I
have
am
to.
excited to try it.
You don't have to. We're just going to paint a wintry barn festive scene,
That sounds good.
right? So
Is this a situation where I should like watch the beginning of the tutorial and see like what colors of paint I need and stuff to make sure I
yeah,
have
so
them?
it's Michelle the Painter is the YouTube channel that I like with this kind of thing, and it's fun. It's like a paint and sip kind of thing, and she goes through all the colors that you're going to need and the size she's going to use and everything, and then you can kind of just watch it and paint along, or just take the inspiration and move on. Like there's long versions, and sometimes there's just kind of a
Okay, like
short,
an abbreviated.
like jump through kind of version. So whatever you feel like doing.
Cool.
And
Well,
then
that
2
sounds
weeks
fun.
we'll compare notes. And I've already talked to a few others, like Shaw
Mm-hmm.
on staff here also paints. There's a few painters in the bunch. So I'm going to see if I can get a few others to paint along with us, and then we can
I think that's a good
all
plan.
have our pictures.
We can all compare.
So yeah, that'll be fun. All right, so that's what's happening. 2 weeks from now, you can paint along with us. And we have lots of painting books in the collection too. So if you need a little some pointers there, we have that. Or if you just want to really get into Venom, You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
that's
there's
also
a
an
lot. You know, I
option.
can hook you up with an expert who can guide you, or you can just read comic books here and enjoy some Venom. But that's going to do it for this week's episode of But Have You Tried? I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Sounds good. See you then.